Great. Well, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. I appreciate that, Shumon.
Certainly.
We indeed have been friends for a long time. And as Suman described, US Ignite is a nonprofit, and we are attempting to see how we can improve the health and lives, education, transportation, public safety of ordinary Americans throughout the United States. And we're doing this city by city. And we picked Madison as one of our first cities because of Suman and his team and Lance and others who were very interested in taking a look at how can advanced technologies like Paradrop make a significant difference in that way. Am I doing all right there? You look,
Do you want your slides up yet?
no, no, I just wanted to make sure that you were happy because you were
Okay.
looking unhappy. And you're the only person I can see. Okay. So let me show you a few slides here. And I'm going to do that. Oh, hold on one second. I have to go and start the slide over again so I can share it. All right, now that I'm running the slideshow, now I can share it. There we go. Okay, so I want to talk to you about smart and connected communities. I do have an affiliation with University of Utah, so I wanted to point that out as well. And just tell you that this is the auditorium on June 14th, 2012. So is that exact date. This is the White House South Auditorium. And we are listening at this moment to, I'm trying to lean in and see exactly who that is. I believe that is John Holdren. I believe he's one of the next pictures. There he is, John Holdren. He's the President's Science Advisor. And he was there at the birth of US Ignite. We also had support from Subra Suresh, the director of the National Science Foundation. And we had the Julian Janikowski, head of the Federal Communications Commission, also helped to birth US Ignite. So it's a pretty big deal. Suman's picture is in here someplace. Can you point yourself out, Suman? I don't know where you were sitting.
Not yet, but I'll keep looking.
Okay, but he's there someplace. So US Ignite is really, as you've heard from Suman, about next generation applications and services leveraging advanced networking technologies like Paradrop in smart and connected communities. And you can see those smart and connected communities as they currently exist in the bottom right-hand corner there. I'll come back to a slide that's a little bit bigger than this. But of all of these cities, and there's 25 of them now, there were originally 12, and now we've more than doubled that by cities who were joining us voluntarily and coming on. We decided that among all of these cities who are doing very interesting applications, that we would place a kind of advanced technology bet on one city. And based on the exciting work being done in Madison, Madison is our advanced networking technology, and that advanced networking technology is based on Paradrop. So just taking a look here at some of the applications in the top left-hand corner, you can see visualization, being able to go and project networked VR, streaming VR and AR to the user makes a very significant difference and can lower the cost of headsets rather than having to have a very complex GPU and computer tethered to your goggles. In the middle at the top, you can see a drone which is carrying Wi-Fi connectivity. This is deployed over areas where there are forest fires to be able to provide connectivity for the firefighters so that they don't lose connectivity. Every year we lose maybe 3 or 4 firefighters because they get surrounded by fire and the communication system can't get to them to let them know that they needed to get out. So this is intended to go and help prevent that. Top right, you can see some gigabots. These guys are from Kansas City, and they are cost-reduced robots. The way they get cost-reduced is that all the intelligence gets beamed to them over the Wi-Fi connection, and all they are is a mass of sensors and motors and batteries, and they get all of their intelligence from the streamed in from the connectivity. And that's an example of the kinds of applications we think are pretty interesting. Maybe someone will propose an application where they manage a set of home robots from a Paradrop. That would be pretty interesting. You could go and make sure that the Paradrop knew where all the robots were at any given time and then tell them to move and not move. It has to have pretty low latency because if a robot goes and starts heading for and sees a stairway going down, and instead of falling down the stairway, we need to go and stop the motors from running. So the visual recognition has to be done, have to send a command back to say motor stop running so it doesn't fall down the stairs or run into another robot or another person. So very low latency required to do that effectively. And there's a lot of computation because of the cameras. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see actually a Red One motion picture camera atop a clinical microscope, which is looking at a picture of these round things you can see on a 4K television screen there. Those round things are called diatoms. They come out of the Pacific Ocean. And students in a classroom in Chattanooga, Tennessee, get to learn about these diatoms and rotifers and other things by using a low latency coast-to-coast connection. Runs at about 1.5 gigabits in order to be able to send it with very low latency. If you have time to compress it, if you're watching a 4K movie done by Hollywood, it tends to take about 2 to 3 weeks of supercomputer time to compress that down to the bandwidth that you can go and run over a standard DSL or broadband connection. But if you're going to have live 4K, it actually takes quite a bit of bandwidth if you don't have time, you don't have a few weeks to go compress it. In the bottom middle is the symbol for a new program that US Ignite has become involved with called POWER, P-A-W-R, Platforms for Advanced Wireless Research. And there should be an announcement next month about 2 cities that have been chosen in the United States to have very advanced networking technologies. And that program is being administered because it's an industry National Science Foundation program by US Ignite and Northeastern University. And of course, on the bottom right are the cities involved in our smart gigabit communities. So here's that map again, and you can see the partners that we work with and some of the industry partners that we work with in these various areas. And we're happy to connect you to any and all of these people that may be helpful to you. So if there's another community that you think would be particularly interested in doing something that you're doing, or you would like to do something they're doing, or one of these companies is a company that you think that you would like some introduction to and could help you out with the project that you have in mind, we're more than willing to make those connections. That's one of the things that we do. So let me talk to you about the program on smart gigabit communities. It's different from the POWER program and some of the other things we're doing. But the strategic goals of the Smart Gigabit Communities program is to create a self-sustaining ecosystem of smart gigabit communities. We think that eventually every city will become smart. We'll have to go to brilliant or smarter or something. But we want to create a self-sustaining ecosystem that has such value, that has such improvements in education, healthcare, public safety, transportation, that those cities want to not only work with the US Ignite nationally and organizations like Madison Ignite, but work with the other communities and become a self-sustaining ecosystem. And the second strategic goal is to transition government-funded research in these advanced networks into smart community benefits. How can we take the great stuff that comes out of the faculty and academic institutions and other nonprofits and turn that into real benefits for smart communities? So our formula I've already talked to you about. We go and we work with industry that's very interested, and they fund part of US Ignite, academia, communities for beneficial applications of advanced network technologies, and then share that with the other communities. So Madison, you're one of our important communities that we want to share with the others, but you're also a community that we're looking to have do some of the most advanced edge applications out there, and I'll talk some more about that. We think to make that successful, there need to be local partnerships. And those local partnerships involve steering groups within Madison and the other communities, and a digital town square that I'll talk to you a little bit more about, and then share these best practices. This is going to be the third year of US Ignite this year in 2018 in smart gigabit communities. And we want to really grow this portfolio of communities and apps. really apply the network effect. And Metcalfe's law that says the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of participants in that network. There's an effort this year especially to emphasize rural and agricultural apps. So if you can think about something that really helps rural and agricultural areas, that kind of gets bonus points nationally. And to emphasize the digital town square, which is an ability to go and have local traffic stay local within that community. So we don't have to go and throttle it through peering points, which we've discovered in years 1 and 2 can sometimes be very significant. So here again are those communities. We've just announced some new ones. We have one that's driving distance from you now in Red Wing, Minnesota. They're doing a kickoff next week on the 27th, if anyone wants to drive over to Red Wing. And the entire area that they're supplied by Hiawatha Broadband is a member. The other close ones to you are Flint, Michigan. Flint has been working through Kettering University, and they have a gigabit to their schools, so we've been looking at school applications. Somewhat to your south, Urbana-Champaign. This is an opportunity to see what we can do in low-income areas where we may need to have special application portfolios that can be effective for folks who have limited incomes. There was a BTOP program under the previous economic stimulus that allowed several thousand households in Urbana-Champaign to get gigabit connectivity. Lincoln, Nebraska, just probably the next closest one there, is also a new community and is very interested in the wireless capabilities. And of course, you're very strong in wireless there in Madison. So everybody here on the map has a story. But the story for Madison has really been that Paradrop is a very interesting place to be. We've been growing this. When we started, we intended to have 12. We actually had 11 that we announced at the very beginning. By a year later, 17. It's not today, 18, but as December 2017, we were up to 25. So we've more than doubled, and we continue to have communities that want to come and join. And we think that's perfectly wonderful because we're trying to create an ecosystem in which the applications you develop can have commercial money-making applications, or perhaps you want to give them away and have them be open source. That's okay too. We're just trying to make sure that the benefits from advanced networking can happen. We encourage everybody to have a community steering group. We think that the mayor and the political leadership is often very important to be able to make that happen. So is academia, faculty research, student projects, capstone projects, master's student projects, involving local foundations and local philanthropic organizations, because we are trying to do good in each of our SGC communities with these advanced technologies. Continuing around the community and technical leaders, people who have incubators, civic-minded organizations like Five Nines there in Madison, economic developers and accelerators and incubators. And then industry is very interested in doing various kinds of pilots. They often sponsor activities and are very interested in having some deployments. Bringing those folks together into a community steering group we've seen be very powerful within the smart gigabit communities. So these applications, these gigabit and smart community applications, we're trying to generate them through local competition and reverse pitches like the one that you're here for today. We're looking for funding matches by local industry and quasi-governmental agencies and foundations. We do have NSF funding for 2017, 2018, and maybe part of 2019. We're going to see how that can work out. We hope, however, that this becomes something that the community wants to keep doing in perpetuity and keep getting better and better applications and using newer and newer technology to advance the lives of people in your community. In terms of sharing, we have lots of publicity outlets. At us-ignite.org, we have listed a couple of hundred of these applications that are available for sharing and can make a difference. We hold events and phone calls. I'll tell you about an event at the end of the slides here today. And we have a sharing fund to try to encourage with monetary prizes sharing of applications as well as generating applications. And of course, this year we'd like to integrate those into the normal operation of government agencies nonprofits in your area, foundations in your area, and commercialize some of these applications, because that's one of the best ways of making sure that they have a future. The number of applications that are currently shareable is about 34 as of December 2017, probably a bit higher than that now. There's 83 that we think are potentially easily shareable to another location. These are the areas in which you can see that they tend to run. There's a big section here for emergency response and disaster preparedness. You look across to the left, you can see the transportation is also very big, especially for communicating autonomous vehicles, for warning pedestrians, for helping with bicycle movement to make sure that they don't have to make too many stops and can be efficient. And then, of course, you can see lots of other areas, including utilities and economic development, public safety, public health. So this is what's been developed so far, how they break down into areas. And a couple of new ones I thought I would just tell you about. One is a modular prefab smart pavement that feels the pressure of tire wheels on the pavement. And if you pave a road with this, it can see if the cars are driving in their lanes. If a car, if someone falls asleep at the wheel and the car drives off the road, the pavement knows and can tell police and emergency first responders that a car has left the road and either needs assistance or perhaps might be in the ditch by the side of the road. So the smart pavement system is one of the interesting new things. This is an example of sensors everywhere, including in the road. And they can, of course, tell how fast you're going by the time the front wheels versus the back wheels crossing the same spot on the pavement, and really provide a lot of detailed traffic information in an anonymous way. The second one here on this page is on an emergency internet bypass lane. This one's being done at Cornell University. So there's a dynamic, reserved, and resilient routing for emergency traffic in case of some kind of emergency, a severe earthquake, a severe flood, or hurricane. The public safety information can bypass the normal channels and use the emergency internet bypass lane. So that's another example of advanced networking technology that can help with, in this case, public safety. So I'd just like to conclude by talking a little bit about how computing has at one time been centralized. Take a look at the bottom left-hand corner. The thing that she's looking at, I affectionately call a BFLP, a big flashing light panel. My first operating system that I wrote ran on one of these BFLP machines, and everything was very centralized. At the, if you go just a little bit to the right and up, you can see that a Wang 3300, which was actually one of the very first shared computers, and you can see it shared here among 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, each of whom has a 10 character per second I/O device that they're using to go and type commands and get output from the Wang computer. So this is one of the first times that we had centralized computer with distributed access. Well, that was time sharing, and time sharing was very important until the middle of the bottom, which was the IBM PC came along in October of, I think it was 1982. And that said, oh, I can do it all right here myself. I have my own personal computer. And that re-centralized things right next to the user. And of course, we have that today with phones. But then we have this new phenomena, which is you can see in the deeper blue, which is a Chromebook accessing the cloud. And so once again, we've got the cloud providing computing and then using communications to go send it to a lightweight end device. So at the far right, you can see that I think that this is going to go in ways that we're going to merge these two paradigms and have a hybrid method of access. So we may have in this case, you can see a thing that looks like a phone accessing both the public cloud and in this case, it's called a local cloudlet. Cisco calls it FOG, edge computing, Paradrop, whatever the name is, something that's located very near you. Here are some examples of how we think a city-based digital town square, a community edge cloud, you can see it's a community edge cloud, with a programmable network, can make lots of applications possible. At the bottom left, you can see learner-directed education, where rather than following the pages in the book and learning the way that somebody set it out, the learner can ask questions and essentially get a dynamic book written for them based on the path that they're following in discovering and learning. That may be a very interesting way to be able to both satisfy curiosity, encourage students to seek knowledge, just-in-time information, and that kind of learning could really transform education. Second one there is a safety or medical, what does it say, robot that might be running around. You remember the gigabots. Well, why aren't there a set of gigabots running around your home looking to make sure that nobody has fallen, that the carbon monoxide levels are okay, the temperature is okay, and just check on the well-being of everybody and everything, make sure everything is copacetic. On the right-hand side there, you can see some real-time health. One of the things that Wendy Nilsson at the National Science Foundation believes is that if we can actually watch intra-heartbeat rhythms of the heart, have kind of a continuous EKG, that we could probably not have to do something as drastic as administer a shock to reboot the heart when it goes into atrial fibrillation. Maybe we could apply very much smaller corrective currents, and the person might not be even aware that we had intervened and prevented an episode that would have required a resuscitation shock. That same person to the farther to the right is exercising outside and connecting wirelessly. Then you can see a picture of an intersection with the cars moving through it without a stoplight in the middle. They're all perfectly exactly timed with a very low latency network that's highly reliable. And it needs very low latency, so it has to be done in community so that they can adjust their speeds perfectly to go through that intersection. On the far right, you can see an example of crowdsourced information about an incident. The Public Safety Command Post can fuse that information together. There's been a project about that at Wayne State and some trials in Flint on that. And you can also see that there's a smart streetlight that has a camera on it, which might provide a unique angle. So what happens in this case is that we've got sensors in all of these locations. The sensors are going and transmitting their information to the community edge cloud. And at the community edge cloud, there can be very sophisticated computations and fusion of, in the case of the incident, multiple 3D views into a composite 3D view. In the case of the cars, figuring out exactly which cars should speed up and slow down. In the case of the real-time health, exactly how a very low voltage might be applied to correct the heart rhythm. In the case of a robot, to control that robot. In the case of learner-directed education, to find exactly the pieces that are needed. And then send those back. And so, for example, for the person who was on real-time health, it might say, stop exercising. We see some anomalies here, and we would otherwise have had to keep you in the hospital, but we can allow you to be at home when we have this real-time monitoring. And in the middle, you can see a car is being told to slow down by 3 miles an hour. And the street light spotted another victim that's behind the car and notified the folks in public safety. So this is the kind of having a local cloud which is extremely responsive and resilient can really be very important. Here's a visualization that's been done by Lion Barrett, visualizing the routing paths of the internet. And in addition to being just a beautiful piece of art, one of the things I want you to notice is the balls at the end, that there really is a very rich set of edge topology in the internet already. Those are technically subnets or other kinds of networks which are more densely connected. What I think we're doing in US Ignite is to take a look and take advantage of that connectivity in each of these colored balls on the outside of this diagram, and not have to send everything into the inside into the distant cloud. We'll still use the distant cloud, but let's see what we can't do in the outside. So the future of the internet, I think, is going to be The next place for infrastructure and app growth is going to be in cities and communities in the kind of the diagram that I showed you, the digital town square. It features low latency, fixed cost, abundant local access, resilience, and locality. It really requires a new class of infrastructure. I think the future of the internet is going to be more autonomous and self-assembling, more cognitive, more services-based with a thin waist for internet-like growth and synergy. Larry Peterson has been a big advocate of this, and I think he's right about that. And being able to take this national and global, which of course US Ignite is trying to do. Here is a line which is describing, and it's a logarithmic line, application latency requirements. And you can see if you look at the right, 10 seconds, 1 second, 100 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, and so forth, with less latency as you move to the left. And without going into all the applications, you can see that things which are mechanical, that have to actually move, are on the right-hand side. Actually moving something that has inertia and mass takes significant time. People being active and having the ability to move tend to run in this 100 millisecond to about a few second range for the applications that we currently run with those folks, their smartphone, web, and so forth. But there's really interesting applications as we continue to move to the left. So if we want to do power grid control, we have to work at sub 1/60th of a second timeframes. Vehicle motion control, a vehicle will move about 2 feet in 1 millisecond. We have to have just a few millisecond time control there. For the next round of wireless 5G, the response time has to be in that single to low double digits response time. And as you go down, you can see even higher speed things, high speed trading, which relies on special fiber, or in many cases just using microwave, because microwave is faster than fiber. And indoor geolocation is being done now with very, very rapid measurement of time to see propagation of light delays in an indoor setting. It's one of the ways that gets done. So what we'd like to do with most of our cities is operate in the city edge cloud capability you see with the blue oval around it. And we're focusing most of our communities on these applications. But in Madison, you are our advanced community. We want you to think about the next step down, the next more responsive set of applications, the things that Paradrop could do uniquely. So I think of Madison as the extreme edge of the internet, the extreme edge. Characteristics, response times that appear instantaneous. Wouldn't you love to have a computer that responded instantaneously to everything you did? Hyper-locally resilient. It doesn't depend on the cloud at all or the city edge. It's really resilient, even hyper-locally, because the Paradrop is right there and provides everything that you need in case of needing to be able to operate autonomously. It's locally secured and therefore not subject to cloud data breaches. That's very important to a set of folks in the financial world and the medical world. And to go beyond the cell phone. The cell phone is great. There's lots of great apps for cell phones. But how can we use things like Paradrop to support groups of people, their devices, their sensors? So I was just kind of daydreaming earlier today about some interesting Paradrop possibilities. A family server or coordinator or organizer or optimizer. And when the cloud is not fast enough, secure enough, trusted enough, or connected enough, Paradrop is a wonderful answer. So what are some of these other group possibilities? Teams, troops, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts may be out in a park without cellular service, but a Paradrop running on a battery or solar power could provide communication for that troop. At the campsite, a vehicle, a boat, a skiing backpack or a ski party. Paradrop could be almost anywhere and provide that kind of local instantaneous response that I think is going to define the next generation of internet applications. Another possibility, how about an always-on AI assistant to a person or group? I was driving a rental car today, and I deliberately picked a rental car with Android Auto so I could go say, "Okay, Google, navigate to the Hunan restaurant. And it did very well with that.
I don't support navigation. You can ask me on your mobile device and I can get you to your destination.
I said a key word which activated the device right here. But how about an always-on AI assistant that is continuously like a friend or a mentor offering advice and help, even if I don't ask for it explicitly? I think that's the next step. And Paradrop might be very capable of doing something like that. Or suggests or advises actions based on collective sensor input. I don't really want to know what the temperature is in the next room. I really want to know, are the temperatures varying in such a way that there might be a fire someplace, or that there might be a spill, or that I need to do something. So not just telling me what the sensors say, but suggesting or advising actions I thought might be really interesting. So anyway, I am very excited to be here virtually tonight and talk to you about the possibilities for the extreme edge of the internet and to open it up to your imagination so that you can really think about what those are. And I told you I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a meeting and a conference. We're having the largest smart city conference in North America, March 27th to 29th this year in Kansas City. There is an academic researcher summit sponsored by the National Science Foundation the day before, and it also overlaps, that goes the 26th and 27th. The programming on the 27th is joint between that researcher summit and the US Ignite Application Summit. This is a picture from 2017, excuse me. We had 1,800 attendees from 27 countries. We had 150 demos and exhibits, including one from Suman Banerjee, who showed us where every bus in Madison was and how many people were waiting to get on. So it was very impressive. We thank you for that, Suman, and it was one of the reasons we continue to think of Madison as being one of the leading places. This is a fisheye view of the expo area. There is space in the expo area that we could make room for even this year. If you have something that you develop in the next month that you would like to show off, or we can do it next year. Takes you a little bit longer to do that. One of the things we do with this conference is to really demonstrate this leading edge. And we encourage every city to be leading edge in terms of a city digital town square. We're encouraging Madison to think even further than that, more advanced in terms of the Paradrop. So that was it. Do I have any questions?